I remember sitting in meditation, sitting on the floor, cross-legged, closed my eyes. And what happened then was my body, it was like it completely dissolved. It was like I had disappeared into the everythingness, and I didn't know where my body ended and where the rest of life began. And it felt peaceful and it felt loving. And it was in that moment where I was deep in this meditation where I heard this voice that said to me, "You're in the 13th dimension." Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of First Contact. I'm very excited to say that I have a little special surprise for you. If you're watching on YouTube, you can probably see that we've got a new look coming into the new year. And also, I've decided to take the podcast just in a very slightly different direction as we enter the new year. So firstly, I want to say, if you have been following along since the beginning, thank you so much for all of your love and your support and your conversations and all the crazy stuff that's happened in the last year. We have had the most amazing guests join us, sharing their journey, their stories, their knowledge and wisdom. There's just been so much on this show, and I've met the most incredible people along the way. Now, as we move into this year, what I really have been feeling is I want to put more of my story out there, which, as I say it, makes me feel a little nervous. You know, it's quite easy just to interview other people and other guests with their stories. But the truth is, I myself have had Galactic contact for almost a decade now. So I thought it would be quite fitting on the first day of a new year to begin by doing a solo episode. There's no guest today, it's just me, about my journey into Galactic awakening. So I hope you guys really enjoy this. Kick your feet up, grab your popcorn, do whatever it is you do when you listen to podcasts, and hope you enjoy the story that I'm about to share today. So some of you do know who I am. My name is Eesha Patel. Some of you have been following my work for a while, and for that, I thank you so deeply. For those of you who are new to my work, I went through a really massive experience, a spiritual awakening experience in 2015. And on the back end of that is when I really started to become aware or awake to this idea that there's more to this human life than meets the eye. There were a couple of very pivotal points along that journey that facilitated this galactic awakening for me. One of them was actually before 2015. I was going through some difficult times in terms of energy was all over the place. I was ungrounded. Weird things were going on in my life. And that was around the time where I connected with a lady, and she taught me this very specific type of meditation. It's called the Merkaba light body activation, and it's a meditative process. And as a very young, I think late teens, early 20s sort of person, I was very curious about this kind of work. And so when this opportunity came to me to learn this meditation, I jumped in with all my hands and feet and everything. And I really wanted to learn about this mysterious world that we live in. So I started going for sessions up to the hills, used to drive all the way there to meet with this person, and she would teach me this specific meditation technique. And then I was told to go home and practice it. And sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't, as it goes. Life was also happening alongside, as some of you guys know how that goes. And so I actually remember one of my very first early experiences of, I only just learnt this Merkaba light body activation technique. And then I went home and I tried it myself. And straight away, I met 4 of my angelic guides in that one meditation. And at the time I thought, okay, that's interesting. And I was pretty open-minded to this idea that there are beings out there. And because the connections were so clear, I think I was quite receptive. You know, sometimes what happens is we allow the doubts and the fears and all the things to get in the way. Am I making it up? Is it really this? Is it just a voice in my head? You know, all of that comes up. And I'm quite grateful that A, I started this quite young, so I was very malleable, and B, that also I had that level of open-mindedness where I could receive that connection, take it for what it was. That sparked a series of other events in my life. So I kept exploring that practice for a number of years. It took me about 1.5 years of doing this practice consistently. And I'm talking like about a year and a half down the track after I first met this mentor. I would say for the first half of that period, I probably wasn't very consistent. And then towards the end, in the last sort of 6 to 8 months, I started doing it every single day. So every day, about 45 minutes, I was sitting in meditation and I was activating my Merkaba light body. And at that point in time, I didn't really know what the impact of that was going to be. I just knew that it was something I needed to do. And my motivation for going into it was because my energy field was all over the shop. And I knew that when I did it, it helped me, and it helped me manage my empathic abilities, which I wasn't super aware of at the time, but I knew that I was getting affected by things around me, right? So I would sit in meditation every day. And this one particular day, I remember sitting in meditation, sitting on the floor, cross-legged, closed my eyes, and I did my practice. I activated my Merkaba light body. And what happened then was my body, it was like it completely dissolved. There was just me and nothing and everything. And it was like I had disappeared into the everythingness, and I didn't know where my body ended and where the rest of life began. It was just this very, very unique experience of being completely one with everything around me. And it felt peaceful and it felt loving. And it was in that moment where I was deep in this meditation where I heard this voice that said to me, "You're in the 13th dimension." Now, at that point in time, I didn't know what dimensions were. You're talking to a 21-year-old. I don't know any of this stuff. And I jumped on Google and I was trying to find out what is the 13th dimension. And 10, 12 years ago on Google, there really wasn't a lot out there. These days, you can find a lot of stuff. There's a lot more openness to this kind of thing. But back then, there was nothing. So I tried to search for it online and didn't get very far. I scrolled through a few pages of search results and I found, I think, one website that said something about 12 dimensions. But I heard it so clearly that I was in the 13th dimension. And so I sat with that. That experience stayed with me for a number of years. And later on down the track, I was able to piece together what it was all about. But I had the experience. I played around with it a little bit. I had one other session like that where I was sitting in meditation, and very similarly, I felt myself going through these various stargates and jumping between the 7th and the 9th dimensions. But again, had no idea what it was or what I was doing. And so I kept up this practice. I had these sessions with this lady I was working with, and eventually it just became a really integrated part of my life. Now, fast forward to the year 2015, I was going through a big life transition, as these things go, and this spiritual awakening that started to make itself known to me. It started off in very interesting ways. So this one particular experience happened when I was laying in bed one night and I couldn't fall asleep, and it was about 2:00 in the morning, and suddenly it was like these voices were speaking through me, not to me, but through me. Now, it's so interesting because this concept of channeling, I'd only really just heard about it. I don't think I'd ever really met anyone who could do it. I'd heard about it. And when this happened for me, it happened so spontaneously, so just literally overnight. I didn't know what to make of it. And as they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. It was around that time that I met someone who was a channeler, and I started going along to their sessions. And so as I went along to some of the weekly classes, I became comfortable with this idea of channeling. And that's when I started to realize that it was this consciousness that was coming through me, which I kind of already suspected. I mean, they told me the very first group that came through, they said, we are the Mayan elders. I don't know who they were, you know. And then bit by bit, the Pleiadians came through, the Arcturians came through, Andromedans. I mean, I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but a lot of different groups of beings have come to me over the years. And while my practice has shifted out of this trance channeling method, I still have a very strong connection with a lot of these beings. Now, I want to go back to my very first connection with star beings. And it was actually the Arcturians that came through in a very strong way. So not long after I was going through this spiritual awakening experience, I had this night where I was suddenly channeling. And then what started to happen very quickly after that was I started receiving these sacred geometries that would come to me in meditations or when I was out and about in the street. I would just get these quick flashes, these downloads, where I would see these symbols and I received very, very specific information about these symbols. So I took out a little notebook. I drew these symbols down. I started off with about 4 of them, and then later on it built to 12. And all I heard was, you need to share this. And this was such a deep inner intuitive guidance that you need to share this. And so within a matter of weeks, I mean, this whole timeline moved pretty quickly from having a spiritual awakening experience to running my first event was about 5 weeks. And it just felt so right, you know. There was a part of me that was a bit nervous, like I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never facilitated. I had no facilitation training whatsoever. I didn't know how to run a meditation group, nothing. But I was trusting in that inner guidance. And I took 2 of these symbols. I vaguely knew what they did, but not 100%. What they, and I say they, now I know it was the Arcturians. I didn't know exactly who they were at the time. They called themselves back various councils of light. So they just came through and said, we're a council of light. Here, you know, here's some stuff. Go and share this with the world. So I later found out that it was an Arcturian council of light, and the geometries were coming specifically through them. And there's a reason for that. The Arcturians are masterful healers. They know a lot about sacred geometries and healing techniques. So when I look back on it now, it makes a lot of sense that they were the ones that provided me with these codes. So I received these sacred geometries. I took 2 of them. I turned them into little graphic cards, you know, and then I put it out there and I said, who wants to join me? And about 7 people joined me for my very first event. And the people had the most profound experiences that evening that even I had not expected would happen. I mean, honestly, there was a part of me that thought, okay, you know what? If nothing happens, I'll just send everyone home, give them their money back, and that would be the end of that, right? Yeah, actually, what happened was people had very profound experiences that evening, and 3 people in the room, including myself, sensed and saw with our third eyes and our inner vision this Arcturian triangular blue starship come in and was there supporting and guiding this process. So that was one of my very early connections with star beings. And as I started working with these energies more and more, I was able to realize that there are so many different beings out there, so many different races. You know, then I was connecting with Pleiadians, Mira from the Pleiadian High Council, Anashita, she's an Arcturian being, became very close with me. Ashtar, I met Ashtar and all the beautiful beings, part of the fleet that are here to support. I met angelic beings like Archangel Michael. I met ascended masters like Saint Germain. All of these beings started coming to me to support. They would show up in my meditations. They would show up in so many different signs and ways, and through oracle cards and feathers and synchronicities and numbers. And it's like everything just really opened up for me. So I feel like I could go on with this story for hours and hours and hours. But I do want to wrap this segment up here and just to give you that little bit of overview for now of how my journey started and the very initial stages of my galactic awakening. As we go throughout the many episodes I'll do in this podcast, my intention is to do regular little segments like this where I share aspects of my journey, where I introduce you guys to the various star beings, the Arcturians, the Sirians, the Andromedans, Pleiadians, Polarans, the Lyrians. There are so many races. As I take you through, I will bit by bit introduce you to all of these different galactic beings, and also some of the lessons and the learnings I've had along the way about how to connect, who to connect with, how to discern what frequencies you're connecting with. That was a huge one for me. It took me a long time to work that out. So I've got a very exciting agenda planned for you guys over the rest of the year, and I hope you guys will continue to join me as I share this story, this journey that I've been on. Because for me, this journey of galactic awakening has been so profound in so many ways, life-changing. I mean, I've dedicated my whole life to this. I can't wait to share with you guys the story of the physical sightings and all the things that have come through since then as well. So thank you so much for listening in today, for allowing me to share my story from my heart to yours, and stay tuned for the rest of it. I think you'll learn a lot, and I hope that by me sharing this, it will encourage you to open your heart, to open your mind, and to really tune in to what else is available. We are so much more than just our physical bodies. We are multidimensional, pan-dimensional beings that are coexisting in so many spaces at once. So I can't wait to deep dive into all of that with you throughout the year, as well as connecting you with some other amazing guests that we have lined up as well. So thank you all for joining me today. It's an honor, really, for me to share this as the first episode of a new year, a fresh start, a new look. Thank you for joining me, everyone.